America was promised a golden age. Not later. Not over time. Not after adjustments. Right now. Lower prices. More jobs. A stronger economy. That was the pitch. So here's the honest question. It's been almost a year. If this is the golden age, why doesn't it feel like one? Welcome back. On this channel, we don't argue politics. We don't pick teams. We look at outcomes. Big promises go in. Real-world results come out. And today, we're looking at one of the biggest promises of all. Donald Trump said America was entering a new golden age. So let's slow this down. Let's strip away the slogans. And let's talk about what's actually happening. In January 2025, at his inauguration, Trump said something very specific. The golden age of America begins right now. That's not a long-term vision. That's an immediate claim. No waiting period. No grace period. But fast forward to December. Now the message sounds different. Now the golden age is coming. Now we'll see results in 6 months. Maybe a year. That shift matters. Because when timelines move, it usually means reality didn't cooperate. Here's something people don't talk about enough. In economics, timing is everything. If growth is real, you see momentum early. Hiring picks up. Investment increases. Confidence spreads. But when leaders start asking for patience, it's usually because the engine didn't start the way they expected. And that brings us to jobs. Jobs are the simplest measure we have. You either see job growth, or you don't. In 2024, the US added about 168,000 jobs per month. That's strong. That's steady. In 2025, that number dropped a lot to about 55,000 jobs per month. Let that sink in. That's not a slowdown at the edges. That's a major loss of momentum. Unemployment also moved up. By November, it reached 4.6%. Now, some people will say, that's still low. And technically, they're right. But here's the problem. A golden age doesn't cool off. It heats up. This doesn't look like takeoff. It looks like hesitation. Trump often says he inherited an economic disaster. That's a powerful story. But here's the issue. Economic trends don't reset on Inauguration Day. They carry over. And the slowdown in hiring doesn't show up clearly before 2025. It shows up after policy changes start rolling in. That makes the inheritance argument harder to defend. And it shifts attention to something else. Policy execution. Manufacturing was supposed to be the crown jewel. A revival. A comeback. Factories roaring back to life. But the data tells a quieter story. Manufacturing jobs barely moved. Out of the first 10 months, only 2 showed any real gains. That's not a boom. That's flat. And manufacturing doesn't respond to speeches. It responds to predictability. Which brings us to tariffs. Tariffs were the centerpiece of the strategy. And they weren't small. The average US tariff rate jumped from about 2% to nearly 17%. That's the highest level since the 1930s. Here's the part people misunderstand. Tariffs aren't paid by foreign governments. They're paid by businesses. And businesses don't just absorb those costs. They pass them on. To retailers. To suppliers. To consumers. On top of that, the rollout was messy. Deadlines changed. Rules shifted. Exemptions appeared, then disappeared. Even people inside the administration admitted. It was more painful than expected. And when businesses don't know what the rules will be next month, they wait. They delay investment. They delay hiring. Waiting slows everything down. Trump often talks about inflation as something he inherited. But inflation peaked back in 2022. By 2024, it was already cooling. By late 2025, inflation sat around 2.7%. That's not runaway inflation. But it's not collapsing either. Trump promised prices would fall fast. When that didn't happen, Responsibility was denied. Instead, specific items were highlighted. Turkey prices. Egg prices. But most people don't live on turkey and eggs alone. Rent matters. Healthcare matters. Insurance matters. And those didn't magically get cheaper. Trump gave himself an A+++++ remarks. That sounds confident. But confidence doesn't move economies for long. Credibility does. Markets don't trade on speeches. They trade on stability and follow-through. And so far, the follow-through looks uneven. As pressure grew, the administration adjusted. Some tariffs were reduced. Farmers received billions in aid. Stimulus checks were floated. These aren't long-term strategies. They're pressure valves. In business terms, this looks like a company missing its targets and trying to calm investors. Trump went on tour. Rallies. Big signs. Lower prices. Bigger paychecks. But slogans don't lower rent. And rallies don't change grocery bills. Economic confidence follows real improvement. Not the other way around. Now everything is pushed into the future. A big tax and spending bill. More stimulus. More growth. But economists are cautious. Many households are defensive right now. They save extra money. They pay down debt. They don't rush out and spend. That limits the upside. Growth forecasts sit around 2%. No surge. No explosion. Nobel laureate Simon Johnson warns. Lower-income Americans may actually be worse off overall. Healthcare costs. Living expenses. Another economist calls the fiscal boost pretty small. In plain terms, the risks are real. The upside is limited. This isn't just about Trump. It's a familiar pattern. Big promises early. Delayed results later. And constant confidence in between. Economic miracles don't run on schedules. They run on execution. So where is the golden age? Right now, it looks more like a waiting period. Waiting for wages to rise. Waiting for prices to fall. Waiting for promises to show up in real life. And history tells us something important. When the data and the narrative disagree, the data eventually wins. If you want economics without the slogans, you're in the right place. Subscribe. Because the truth isn't loud. It's measurable. And so far, the numbers are still waiting.